Jack Fraenkel is the principal of Motivatories, a boutique management consultancy and training company. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you, Jill.
Jack, you say that the best prospects are those that you meet face to face. Please can you explain a little bit about this?
Well, absolutely, Jill. The reality is that people do business with people. They don't do business with machines. So when you meet someone and you can, as I like to say, see the whites of their eyes, you get a genuine feeling for who they are, what they think about, how their body language is, and you can generate and begin to create a relationship which I don't believe you can do solely electronically.
So how do you nurture that relationship?
The nurturing of a relationship, and very much the space that you play in, it's CRM, it's about staying in touch with people. But when I talk about it being face to face, what I mean by that, Jill, is that, if the telephone had been invented after email, email would already be dead. The fact is that people like to talk to people. How many times have you gone to a networking event and I can't help but say the scumbag runs around and collects 80 business cards and has a pre-programmed email go out that night that says, pleased to have met you, Jill. I know that we could do business together. Let's look at my website or whatever. There's no relationship there whatsoever. You probably didn't even meet them. They just happened to pick up your business card off the floor. That's the importance of nurturing. It's about picking up the phone, saying, I think that there's some synergy between us. Why don't we go and have a cup of coffee and investigate it?
And in actual fact, that sort of cup of coffee is exactly how Jack and I originally met. We were both working on the Women in Business course about 5 years ago, and Jack threw down that gauntlet of asking all the people in the room to invite him for coffee, and I was one of, I believe, the few who took him up on that challenge. And here we are 5 years later doing business together.
Best cup of coffee I've ever invested in. And if my memory serves me correctly, Jill, you paid for that cup of coffee.
I might have done, but I remember that you did, but never mind. So once you've met somebody, what sort of things can you say to keep the conversation going?
That's a really interesting question. And so many people start with, so what do you do? And it's almost like this, the Monty Python Spanish Inquisition thing. It's very easy to say to someone, so Jill, what industry are you from? And the conversation you would say, well, I'm in the customer relationship management business. We haven't even mentioned your business. So what interests you about your industry? And you delve in with the genuinely showing interest rather than this pre-programmed, what do you do, who do you work for, how can I sell you something? It's very much about, how did you get into your industry? What excites you about your industry? What are the problems? What are the challenges that you have in your industry? And by the way, if you're asking questions like that, you're already starting to get an idea of how you could or could not help this person. And I always like to say, those who ask the questions control the conversation.
Thank you. We've all been at networking events where we sort of get buttonholed and you almost feel as though you've been driven into the corner and this person is just not going to let you go. Is there a polite way to deal with this situation?
Do you mean if you've already been to the toilet 27 times?
Probably, yes.
The interesting thing is that you can't use, excuse me, I've got to go to the toilet, that often. People notice, unless you're in a networking event of 1,000 people, and then it's not a networking event. The reality is, one of my tricks is I like to get to an event, I like to be the first person to arrive, and then I'm greeting people as they come in. And very often they actually think it's my event, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I get to know everybody in the room roughly, and so I find out that you've got a successful CRM business, and then I meet somebody who is in the business of selling books like we've got here, and it's perhaps not something that interests me. But one of the ways of extricating myself from the conversation is to say, Mr. Bookseller, come and meet my friend Jill. Jill's involved in customer relationship management, so on and so forth. And so I introduce the two of you. let you speak for a minute or two, and then I just excuse myself and wander off to the next person.
Thank you. So how do things like LinkedIn fit into networking?
You know, Jill, being a 59-year-old master of networking as I am, it's face-to-face stuff. If you don't mind, would like to deflect that question back to you. How does LinkedIn fit in with this?
Well, personally, I've been using LinkedIn for about 6 years now, and I have certainly got probably 4 pieces of work directly through LinkedIn. I think the key to it is having an up-to-date profile and generally participating. And again, as Jack said with the face-to-face networking, don't try and hard sell straight up front. Offer to help people develop the relationship, and the work will follow.
You know, interestingly enough, people do business with friends. And if all things are not equal, they still want to do business with friends. So if you can get your profile known via something like LinkedIn, that's not a bad thing. You still need that handshake physically, not that electronic handshake, the physical handshake, where possible. Clearly, if you're doing projects overseas in the IT space, obviously LinkedIn is the way to do it. But then you can back that up with things like Skype.
Absolutely, and we have done exactly that. But also it's interesting that there are now face-to-face networking groups forming within LinkedIn, where one of the criteria to attend these events is being a member of some of the groups. So thank you very much for that, Jack. Very
welcome.
Illuminating, and I'm certainly looking forward to hearing a lot more about all of this topic on Wednesday morning, Wednesday the 28th of April, at the AIIA NSWdotNET event at the Grace Hotel, 7:30. See you there.
Thank you.